Okay, guys, let's maybe get started. It's a very small crowd today, but that's okay. So welcome as usual. I feel like I haven't seen anyone in a while, so it's good to have you guys back. Today's going to be a pretty quick meeting. It'll be really fun. We're going to, first of all, start off with an update on the Engineering TeleBrigade that we have on the go, or that's going to start pretty quick here. We're going to go into reflection on our experience on the Medical TeleBrigade, which will be really quick because there's only a few of us here, but we'll each kind of touch on what we liked, what we learned, etc. And then our execs that are here are going to talk about their roles, and then myself or Cole will fill in some of the other roles just to give everyone a good idea of what the positions are and how you can apply for next year, which is really exciting. And then we'll talk about but an upcoming fundraiser at the end of March. So first, Jess, do you want to talk a little bit about what's going on with your brigade? Oh, you're muted.
So we're going to be having our TeleBrigade coming up in May. It starts on May 4th and ends on June 15th. It'll be one session per week for 6 weeks. And we'll be going with the Dalhousie University. They have the numbers, so it's definitely a go. It's just a matter of setting up our logistics with UVic and their team. So if you're interested in design and planning with water networks, then this is the brigade for you. Yeah, if there's any more information you need, just give me a call or message me on Facebook and we're happy to oblige.
Cool. Thank you, Jess. I know there's not a ton of people in here, but if anyone wants to, spend one or maybe like an hour or so a week for the next couple of weeks on this Engineering TeleBrigade, expand your knowledge on global brigades as a whole, and specifically the TeleBrigade or the engineering chapter, I think that'd be a really cool experience. There's a video down here that you will see in the meeting minutes, and it's just an Engineering TeleBrigade video to give you a better idea of what you can expect. Does anyone have questions about the Engineering TeleBrigade? Cool.
Thanks, Vita.
Yeah. So I know not everyone in here went on the Medical TeleBrigade, which is totally cool. We're still going to talk a little bit about it and our experiences. So maybe for the engineering people in this group, you can kind of hear our opinions on how it went, what we learned, and get a bit more excited for your TeleBrigade coming up. A few questions I have here will just obviously in general, how was your TeleBrigade? Maybe talk about what you learned, what you enjoyed, or how you felt after completing it. I know we did a bit of this amongst each other in the actual TeleBrigade, but now it's a good time, to be open and share your experiences with some of the members that didn't go, or just kind of talk about it now that it's been over for the last 2 or 3 weeks. I actually don't know where we are in the month, but I'll go first. I really enjoyed the TeleBrigade. It was a totally different experience. And I think being able to learn a bit more, just going in last year, I wasn't very invested in the club until I knew I was getting on a plane pretty quick. So I didn't know as much as I should have going into it. It was still a great experience, but this year being able to add on to the knowledge that I learned when in country was, I think, a really cool experience, getting to know kind of the behind the scenes stuff that goes on. I'm just going to pick at random. I'll start with Sarah.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree that it was really different from last year. I thought that the two kind of complemented each other together. Random. Yeah, I think it was good to have done both. Like this year, we got to learn about the healthcare systems. And I liked that we got to learn about the community selection process as well. And yeah, like I said in our last TeleBrigade session, I'm not sure if I would do another one in Honduras specifically, because I'm not sure how much they could change it, but I would definitely be open to hearing a little bit more about the other ones that are going on, or even other chapters.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be cool to do it in like Greece or some of the other countries. I think it'd be cool to learn because you learn so much about their healthcare system and stuff. And Sierra, thank you for your comment. You can go next.
All right, Veda. I think I enjoyed the educational component of it the most. Obviously, all of like Dr. Gladys's sessions sessions were my favorite. And how do I feel after completing the TeleBrigade? Pretty good. I'm definitely really eager to go on one in person, though. I feel like it was a little bit lacking in like the clinic stations. I just like I can't help but compare it to last year, but definitely excited to hopefully go on one next year.
Cool.
Can I choose who goes next?
Sure, that'll be fun.
Okay, I'll make it random. How about Cole?
That was not random. I think that, I definitely think that, Dr. Gladys's portions were excellent. I've always enjoyed speaking to the practitioners in Honduras. They give a really good outlook on the scenario down there, which I think is just so drastically different from what we experience here. I really enjoyed like Sarah said, and learning about the community selection. That's something I didn't know much about. And I think after completing it, I mostly just felt very relieved knowing that we were able to come together and create a program that was still able to offer support for the communities. I know that there's a lot of chapters and a lot of other campuses that are not able to pull together numbers or, funds just due to COVID, and get people, excited to do these programs. And I think that that's really hurting the communities. And so I was really just thankful that we were able to share an experience and go on and provide this fund one way or another to the community. So I think that would be great. I think that it would be really good to do one of these beforehand if you were heading into a new community or a new country like Greece. Learning a little bit about the language and about the culture, I think, is important before you go. So I think that, it's definitely a program that could stick around and has some impact depending on the situation for sure. I'm going to go with Nicholas next. As a business student, Nick, what did you think about the Medical TeleBrigade?
Oh, I thought it was quite interesting, Cole. Thank you for picking me. One of the parts that I found interesting was how they're trying to make it more sustainable by having some communities pay prescriptions and find out which ones can pay for which parts and that type of stuff. And then what did I enjoy? I enjoyed the skin one. I forgot the name for it a second. Dermatology station. Yes, thank you. I very much enjoyed that station. I thought it was one of the ones you get the most hands-on. And I feel good after completing it. And I'll pick Sam.
Oh, surprise. Okay, hold on one second. Let me move out of this area. I'll touch on this a little bit more. So this was pretty interesting, especially from an executive perspective, because this is kind of like the first year, or I guess the second year that I've been in a leadership position. And obviously we went into that with every expectation of going on to an in-person brigade. But you know what? I was really pleasantly surprised with how the TeleBrigade turned out. It was great for me to see that everybody enjoyed it. And I mean, there was something that I was definitely a little bit disappointed in. I thought that they could have done the urban clinic days quite a bit better, but I mean, I'm always inspired by the dedication that these guys have to, helping their country and the citizens that are in it. So listening to people like Dr. Gladys speak about, her kind of business so passionately was really cool. I feel like that's kind of where I learned the most, especially talking about the different types of healthcare systems and comparing and contrasting that, but like actually comparing and contrasting it quantifiably to our healthcare system in Canada. I know everybody else has kind of said that was where they learned the most, but I mean, that was definitely the most kind of impactful for me. I had a great time. It was a lot of fun. What Sarah said about, maybe not doing it again in Honduras is super relatable, but like Orion was talking about, even some campuses were thinking about doing this as a prerequisite for an in-person brigade. While I don't know that that's the extreme to go on, I think that it definitely provides some super valuable context to what GB does as a whole before going on to like an in-person brigade. But yeah. Oh, do I have to pick another person? Oh God.
Yep.
Veda, can you just do it? I can't even see who's in the participant list.
Yep, that's okay. Thanks, Sam. Allie, do you want to go?
Sure. Yeah. So you guys all picked up some really good points, pretty much all of the things I wanted to say. I thoroughly enjoyed the TeleBrigade. I think having no prior in-country experience made me a super clean slate to learn everything. And I really liked learning, like everybody said, the healthcare system there, getting to interview the CHWs, learn about the selection process. I think it provided such a wealth of knowledge that I feel like I'm going to be so much more prepared to go on an in-person one now that I have that introduction to the whole system and the culture. And I agree with what Sam said, that maybe having it as a prereq could be extreme and maybe not everybody has the time for it. But I also think that it would be insanely valuable as a prereq, because I think going in now, you'll have just that much more to offer, knowing the full story and even being more confident to talk about global brigades and what it is to other people in our community and other friends. I learned a lot. And I'm really excited to go on an in-person one in Honduras. And also, I love the idea of doing another TeleBrigade in another country. I think that would be great. So yeah, I feel inspired after completing it.
Cool.
And
good.
Yeah, I'll pick Zoe, why don't you go next?
Yeah, so I feel like by the 8th person now we're kind of all saying the same things, but yeah, I honestly had a great time, and it was really cool learning about, like Veda said. I wasn't super involved in the club last year before going on the trip. Like, the trip is kind of what sparked my motivation to become an exec and be involved in the club. So it was really cool to kind of gain a lot more knowledge on the country and kind of just everything that I never really learned to put the time into before. It was really, really cool. And I think that someone going into it would be a great like first step before actually going in an in-person brigade, because I feel like I'm much more knowledge and stuff now. But yeah, it was awesome. I think that it definitely lacked a little bit, like everyone else said, in the stations, just compared to in person as expected online. But overall, it was awesome. I will pick, who hasn't gone yet?
It's either Nicole or Kate. I think we're the last two that went on TeleBrigade.
Nicole, do you want to go?
Sure. Yeah, like Zoe said, we're all saying the same stuff, but like I guess like the key thing was mostly just like comparing. Like, I had very little knowledge about GB going into in-person brigade last year because, wasn't that involved, but just like knowing like having that experience and then in turn learning what happened before I got there. It was quite nice to just learn a little bit more about what was happening. Sorry, my pasta overflew. And Kate, you want to go?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to what everyone else has already been saying. One of the big things that I guess I didn't really realize before is by us being able to do the TeleBrigade, we were allowing all the people who are going to the clinics to go for free, I think it was. So that was one thing that I really hadn't known before, which was really cool. And then definitely makes me excited to hopefully go on an in-person brigade, hopefully next year. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Kate. And thank you, everybody. Does anyone that didn't go on the TeleBrigade or just anyone in general have any questions for people that went on the TeleBrigade? Cool. Well, why don't we continue on? We don't have much longer. So the executive board structure for this upcoming year, I'm going to hand it over to Cole for a few minutes to quickly talk about this.
Perfect. Yeah. Thanks, Veda. So I know there's not a lot of people here who aren't on the exec board, but I just wanted to spend a quick moment talking about our structure, some of the spots that are going to be opening up, and why our structure is this way. So University of Victoria Global Brigades is different from a lot of other chapters and campuses across Canada and the US, because our structure's kind of been developed from two. When you found a chapter, they kind of give you two structures to base off of. And ours has been adapted because we first started as a medical chapter, and then we slowly integrated business and engineering. And over the past little while, we've adapted some of our executive roles to include some special ones. So for example, logistics is one role that is not common amongst UVic or amongst clubs in chapters across Canada and the US. We've actually taken the logistics role and moved it. Normally, these medical, business, and engineering chapters are separate from each other. So you have one campus chair who coordinates with 3 chapters or individual chapters, and each of those chapters has a fundraising, an education, and external relations. Each of these roles are kind of select, but instead we've decided to create our club kind of in a little tripartite establishment here where we're all connected. We're all on the same meetings. The engineering presidents and the business presidents come and present to everyone so that we can keep our club a lot more holistic. And we've taken the logistics responsibilities out of each of these president roles and moved them down into one single role so that, what we'd really like to do, like the first brigade that I was ever on is, the medical, business, and engineering brigades all went on brigade together, and we all went down to the same community. We stayed on the same compound, and that was really, a special thing to be able to come together and talk at the end of the day and experience what some of the other people were experiencing on their brigades, but as a group. And I think that that's really important. And from a logistics perspective, it actually saves us on things like flights and whatnot because we actually get to do it together. So that's a little bit how our club is structured differently from a larger point of view. And then next year we're going to be changing around a little bit. So right now we have external relations and communications have been 2 roles that we joined together last year into just external relations. And this year we're separating them, and I'll explain the 2 roles and kind of what their responsibilities are going to be next year. For anyone that's interested in joining that hasn't been, all of these spots are going to be up for grabs. You're more than welcome to, and we'll tell you how you're going to apply and what the process is for that. But even if there's currently an exec that wants to reapply for their role or an exec that wants to go into another role, all of these spots are open for new members, for general members to go and apply for. Nobody gets to just automatically retain their role necessarily, but if you are an executive and you have been on the executive structure, there is some preference to keep people or move them up. So, the ones that are going to be the most available are going to be some of the ones lower down. So the logistics, education, external relations, fundraising, co-chair, and communications. And we'll talk about that in a second. But, for example, business, we are going to be moving out. We won't have a business president moving in next year. So it all comes down to what the availability is and, what kind of applicants you're going up against when the time comes to do the interviews. So now I think we'll just go through the structure and then we'll talk about how to apply a little bit. So, so my role is actually a really interesting one. I have a lot of responsibilities in terms of my direct communication with Global Brigades. So each, you go on these bi-weekly meetings with Global Brigades chapters from across Canada, and you get to talk to some of the GB executives. Before COVID, they had, certain GB events and conferences that you'd actually go to. Ashley, the campus chair before me, went to California for a GB event to talk to all of the head executives from Global Brigades. And we're basically the first direct link between the campus chairs, the campuses, and Global Brigades as a whole. I work really, really closely with the other presidents to kind of manage and create an unbiased representation for all the clubs. Our club has always been very med focused. We, I've always had a huge medical presence, and part of my responsibility too is to keep it as unbiased as possible and not give preference towards one or the other. Try to integrate, some of the essences of the business brigade and the engineering brigade into our meetings to talk about. It's been really difficult with COVID and without a very big business or engineering presence this year. I think one of the reasons we were able to send a medical brigade with the minimum number of people is just because we've had such a large presence in med in the past. So I work really closely with the presidents to kind of do that. And I also work with all of the executive roles. As campus chair, you get to really, be a part and help transition people into their new roles and take responsibilities for execs who aren't able to, maintain their role, or they have to leave, or for whatever reason. We've had various people in the past who, weren't able to do it because of whatever, family reasons. I act as, there's a bunch of other logistics things like signing authority on accounts. Before we, one of my goals for this year was to host a UVic GB conference for our club. But we weren't able to do that obviously because of COVID, but it is something that you try to do. The campus chairs and I work together to host a conference for global brigades on Zoom that we had throughout the year. And then you basically just work on how are you going to impact and grow the club? How are you going to expand the chapters and work on new goals and projects for individual people, and just expanding the impact. So it's not really specific to, one role is fundraising or another, but it's just trying to grow the club altogether. And I've had a really, really great time with it. It's really an amazing opportunity to get to know each of the execs really well and get to know the other campuses across Canada and across the US. So it's a great role for sure. I think Sam's up next.
Yeah, hold on. Sorry, I just got bombarded by a wave of kids coming into this building. Let me just go outside. Oh my goodness, look at this, what terrible timing. Anyway, yeah, I personally think that my role as medical president is probably the most fun, and that might be a little bit biased. However, and I mean, obviously it's not without its challenges, particularly in adapting to the way that we've switched to a virtual platform. There's a lot of interaction theoretically that you have with all the members all the time. And I know you guys got to see a little bit of that on the TeleBrigade. It's kind of, just if there was ever a time where, I mean, charge kind of needs to be taken, that's sort of the responsibility of the medical president. But the biggest part for me is recruitment. That was probably the most stressful part about this entire year, especially switching to the virtual platform is a little bit more difficult than we've had in previous years. But it's also the most fun. I mean, you guys probably know by now that I love to talk, and I love to talk to basically everybody who's in the club. I am pretty passionate about GB as well. And so it's sort of my job to have that kind of, I don't know, share that passion, or at least try to share that passion. But I mean, amongst other jobs as well, the biggest thing that I've been working on, aside from recruitment, is probably coordinating with the in-country PAs. Catherine Vanilla, you guys met her. Those of you who came on the TeleBrigade, you would have met her. She's who I've been talking about to this entire year, just getting it all sort of sorted out, managing the schedule, etc. It's kind of a cool experience because you're dealing with someone who's in country, and obviously, and this is going to be a pretty beaten horse for all the executive roles, I think, but it's a virtual platform. It's completely different. The in-person brigades are going to have way more people. There's going to be a lot of close work with logistics to work on flight planning and stuff. But I mean, when you're there, you're really sort of the forefront of the volunteers, and you're interacting with not only the PAs, but all the sort of stations. Sorry, I keep walking by people and they're looking at me strangely. So yeah, I'll go through the rest of it. Each week that we have a meeting anyway, all the executive roles do this, but I work with Veda to kind of plan out what we're gonna say and how we're gonna structure the meeting here. Oh my God, hold on a second. Sorry, this is way more inconvenient than I thought it was gonna be. I didn't realize there was gonna be such a flood of people. UVSS applications are pretty straightforward. They can be a little bit intimidating at first. I know I heard from some of the other presidents from previous years that going into them, there's all this shouting. It seems like it's like Parliament. I think with moving things online, they've kind of figured out a bit of a better system to do it. They're really not all that intimidating. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a responsibility. It just needs to be done. We do have ties with other programs like Princeton Review. So the responsibility moving forward, especially, is going to be kind of to maintain those. And that's with external relations as well. It's sort of like a joint effort there. Also, something that we didn't really do this year is acquire medical donations. So glasses, we work with, Shelburne Optical. And like last year, we gathered tons and tons and tons of glasses, which we brought with us. That was like, we had suitcases full of them. Going into in-person brigade, that's going to be another big part of it. Managing the point tracking, that's sort of like a joint effort with all the fundraising groups as well. I know this year was like a little bit different, but I would say the biggest thing that you can look forward to in this role is to exercise your role as a leader. And I know, like for me, I touched on this a little bit before, it was a little bit disappointed going into a virtual platform, but I mean, like, I learned a lot. I still felt like I made a difference and sort of filled that presidential role. And I can say without hesitation that going into the in-person brigades, anybody who's got that position is going to have a fantastic time. It's going to be like a workout on your leadership skills and your kind of like enthusiasm. But I think it's a really great role. Sorry, I kind of had to dodge around that a little bit. I've got a bunch of people out here, but yeah, I would highly encourage anybody to apply for it. It's a great role.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. Jess, do you want to talk about engineering really quick?
You know what? He sent me a message on Slack that said, I'm headed into the office, and I had no idea what he meant until now. So I guess I'm gonna just pick this one up for him. Engineering is engineering president. You know, all the presidents really share a lot of their responsibilities. I won't go over too much of it. You know, as a president, you do maintain a lot of specific relationships with certain other entities on campus. Jess and Alan have been really great for introducing us to the ESS, it's the Engineering Student Society, and we're able to get many donations through them, which has been great. You know, communicating with members, and the biggest thing for these new clubs like engineering and business is just trying to bring in outside interest, trying to help grow us in different directions. And that's why finding people, you know, like business and you know, business mostly was started by a non-business student. So there's, you know, absolutely no preference to your major, but it is really good if we can find business students who, you know, are able to help us, you know, grow, because I know nothing about the Business Student Society. So it becomes really difficult to try and push you in that direction to make, you know, helpful progressions towards that. So yeah, I'll leave it with that. A lot of what Sam said is kind of maintained into the engineering president's role, but with these new ones, it's just helping to build these clubs and maintain user support. We can do business now.
Yeah, I was going to touch on business really quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
To Aisha. Basically, as you can see, I mean, I'll just go back to the engineering and the medical. They almost mirror each other. They're very, very similar, except for the fact that obviously one's medical, one's engineering, one's business. And like Cole said, you don't have to necessarily have that background to be in that role. It does, I'm sure, help. But, you know, when the roles are vacant and we don't have anyone that steps up to do the role is appreciated. So I'm not going to go over these points just because I know Sam did. You can send us a Facebook message, Instagram message, an email message, whatever you like if you have any questions for any of these roles, but specifically for the roles that I guess the people weren't here to talk about them. Sarah, you're up next.
Okay, yeah, I've really enjoyed this position as well. Definitely requires some organizational skills, but I enjoyed being able to kind of work alongside each of the presidents to at least try and plan brigades, even though we only had the medical one, but now we are doing the engineering one as well. So whoever gets this position next might be able to help us out with a bit of the planning with that as well. But with COVID, without having any travel, my main role was kind of to manage the finances and organize the payment deadlines. It's also really good. You can kind of be flexible and work those around your schedule to whenever you're not busy, or because you have to be the one mailing the money to GB in Toronto as well, collecting payment from the members and making sure everybody's held accountable for that. Like if somebody's not paying, you've got to reach out to them. Keep the whole exec board updated with our budget and our goals. And kind of like some of the other roles have touched on, there's a lot of joint roles like managing the fund points with the president, or fundraising points with the presidents and fundraisers. And then having monthly meetings with the fundraisers to kind of reflect on what we've made. And then other little things there. When the in-person brigades continue, that'll also be the person that'll be kind of planning the trip with our PA. So largely involved in booking flights and then leading the group on travel days. And then we also have a vaccination clinic. So last year we just got them to come to UVic and we had a clinic kind of just for the GB group. And so that was good to have just before we went on the trip. But yeah, if there's any questions about that, please feel free to send me a message.
Thank you, Sarah. Fundraisers.
Yeah, I'll kind of touch on this first, and then Sierra, if you want to add anything, obviously you're more than welcome to. So yeah, me and Sierra were both fundraising execs, and it was really awesome because, as you guys know, fundraising is a big part of our club and how we can make all of this happen. So it was great to have someone to work alongside. I went into this year hopefully being more gala focused. So for those of you that don't know, GB typically throws a huge gala event that is super fun. But unfortunately, because of COVID this year, we weren't able to do so. So this rule changed a lot this year. Hopefully it will be looking much different next year. But yeah, we're basically in charge of planning, organizing, and hosting all of the fundraising events. We also help and kind of organize all of the point system for each event. So we break down how many points you will get for attending, sharing them on Facebook, etc. And Sierra and I come up with the point system for the year that Sam and Cole and Sierra also work closely with us to get that all together. Yeah, and this one's on the, like, honestly, this rule is great for people that are super outgoing and really like being involved with people. Obviously this year, once again, it was different online because we couldn't really do that. But yeah, honestly, I think this rule is super fun, and I think anyone that's wanting to join it who's super outgoing and loves organizing fun events should definitely look into this one.
Thank you, Zoe. Do you have anything to add here?
Yeah, I will, sure.
Okay.
I'll just add, I think that with this role, there's a certain like degree of flexibility and also creativity associated with it. You can definitely plan fundraisers around, you know, your schedule and what works for you. And while, you know, we do have extensive resources for like guidance and planning for events that we've done in the past, there's still, you know, room for creativity in the events that we run. And I also think that the fundraising position is really fulfilling. You know, there's a direct link between your efforts and your events that you run and the money that we're able to raise, and how that contributes to global brigades. So that's pretty cool. And then it's also pretty rewarding to see like a successful event run smoothly and go well that you planned. Yeah, so with that said, I definitely encourage you to apply for this role.
I'm sorry, Vera, one more quick thing too that I wanted to add that I forgot to say. We also too, we provide the fundraising execs like the previous year. So Sam kind of handed everything onto us last year, who was the fundraising exec, with kind of outlines and, like Sierra said, guidance to how we plan and organize all the fundraisers. And so depending on what the club looks like next year, it's really cool because you guys obviously have the reign to like be super creative and come up with any other ideas you have, but we do have guidelines and like backup options if you guys are struggling to come up with any ideas, which I think is super cool and super fun. So yeah,
thank you. I'll just add to that really quick before I touch on my role. All of the roles will have kind of what Zoe said. You get a nice breakdown of how, or of what your role description is, as well as some helpful tips on how to run it. And you'll get a nice meeting with the previous role. So whoever goes in education for this next year will have a meeting with me and other execs about how to do the role and some tips. And you're definitely not going to be going in blindly for any of these roles. So those transitions are really helpful. My role, which I can argue with everybody, I enjoyed it a lot. I think it's one of the best roles because you get to be up front on the camera. Yeah, it's all fun. I like it because I get to know everybody. I think the person in the education role is a huge point of communication between the members, new members, and the execs, because I'm essentially presenting information from all different exec positions. So I get to communicate with them on what needs to be presented, as well as I kind of get to share my own perspective on GB, and I get to kind of help share my passion with you to try and like get you passionate about something that maybe you don't even know about. So I think it's a really cool and fulfilling role, and you get to learn so much about GB. Like I said, I learned a lot in the TeleBrigade, but I learned a ton just like preparing to teach you guys about GB. So it's definitely a really cool role. Some things on here you get to plan in addition to the meetings, which there are like slides and stuff that you can use from previous years. So last year's education role was a bit different because you learn some different things in the in-person year than you would in this virtual year, because like we don't really need to learn how to take blood pressure, how to take other vitals. So it's a bit different, but you have a ton of resources to build off of. You prepare the weekly meeting minutes as well as the YouTube videos this year, which was new because we didn't record the videos last year. And you also get to plan virtual, well, it says virtual social events. When they're in person, there was a lot of potlucks, there was game nights. I don't know, I actually didn't go to them, but you should, because that's how you make friends and meet people. So you are kind of in that position to plan these events. And sometimes there's like, on top of the potlucks, maybe it's like a go out for drinks or go out for dinner. Like there's tons of cool things you can do, and you get to kind of bring everyone together, which I think is really fun. And another thing that sold me on wanting to do this role is that the education exec last year, she's like, this is for someone that maybe wants to work on their public speaking, wants to be in front of people, wants to like kind of get comfortable with that, which I think is a huge skill to have, being able to talk in front of people. And that was never something I really struggled with. However, being online, it's kind of awkward because I've got like no one really saying anything back, or sometimes I can't see you if you're smiling or if you're frowning or whatever. So it's definitely a huge skill you can learn from this, and you've got a lot of support. So it's a great environment to kind of step out of your comfort zone and try that. So I encourage you all to apply for this position. And yeah, feel free to message me with any questions. Now Cole's going to touch on external relations.
Cool. So I actually had this role the year before Brianna. It was my very first introduction to the executive team, and I actually think it was one of the, I mean, this was a great role, but it was definitely a favorite of mine. I enjoyed it. You know, if you really like going out there and building relationships with sponsors and your community, you know, we're going to be having a big impact on that next year. I see a lot of things potentially changing with this role in terms of improving our, you know, outreach and our impact in the community. We've had a lot of hurdles trying to get things like grants, you know, through the city of Victoria or through various other things, getting even you know, gambling licenses. You need to have a large community impact. And so I really see this role evolving into, you know, doing a lot of projects, not just for UVicGB, but for the Victoria community. You know, we have a lot of people that could use it. So that's great. You seek out donations. So you work really closely with the fundraisers. One of the big parts, you know, one of the big fundraisers that we had were silent auctions, which were always a lot of fun. And so you go out and you try to find silent auction donations as well. For the in-person brigade collection, you know, like I said, we had to we try to build about 1,000 hygiene packs. Each has a toothbrush, a toothpaste, floss, soap, shampoo, conditioner, and body wash. And so you have to go out and you have to source all those donations. You also look for glasses. We try to get about 300 prescription, 300 reading glasses, and with about like 200 sunglasses. So it's a lot of work building it in. It can be stressful, but you know, we have a lot of great support in the community. We have a lot of good ones, and we can buy donations as well. We just try to get as much of it for free as we can. You know, applying for grants is a big thing, organizing community volunteer nights. So that's how I built such a great relationship with Soap for Hope. And they've been amazing for us over the past few years, and it's really fun to work with them. You take on some certain responsibilities of the website. So updating the donors list, you know, really going out there and taking pictures of all of our external relations events and posting them. And you work really closely with the fundraisers and the presidents, just keeping updated. And, you know, fundraisers rely on you to collect donations, and presidents rely on you to help build out the materials that we need for the brigades. So I think that this is a really great role for anybody that's interested in working with the community. I think that it allows you to build a lot of really great references. I know that for my some of my med school applications, it was really helpful to have so many great references to know, my impact and the thing that Global Brigades has done for them, and be able to build it out that way. You get to be involved with the community and see different sides of it. So I think that's a really good role. And you do a lot of this stuff independently as well. You get to go out there and work for it. And it's really cool to see in country handing out the, toothbrushes, floss, toothpaste to kids who have never had a toothbrush before, or, giving someone a pair of glasses that you actually found the prescription for that you got in a donation box. I think that was really cool for me. So I think it's a really good introductory role. And then we're introducing a new role. You can switch over to the next slide, Beta. This one, I'm still building it out. So I haven't written out all the responsibilities here, but I think that this is going to become a much more independent role as well. You're going to be managing a lot of the social media interactions, so directing communication through the channels, but much of the, posting about things like fundraisers and meetings are going to be handled by the other execs. You're going to be maintaining the email and responding to general inquiries, but the biggest thing is going to be, self-managed projects in which you are building out certain aspects. So we have a lot of ways or a lot of ideas in which we could grow our presence in social media, growing out our website, introducing new things like, we'd love to have an event calendar that's, dynamic on our page. We'd really like to have a point tracking system that comes into our website so that individuals can track their own points and watch it grow dynamically. And so I think that this requires a little bit of, technical knowledge on how to build websites, but everybody learns something when they introduce into a role. And I think that this is going to be a really great way for us to build it, because we do pay for our services, and it'd be good to be able to continue to grow our social media. So this role is going to be really good for someone who, would like to work on their projects on their own time and work on these things on their own time, which I think would be really good. And that's basically it for I think exec roles.
Cool. Thank you, Cole. So for anyone in here, and this will be posted on YouTube for people who aren't here and want to apply, you can apply now. I'll go over that in a second. Whenever you're ready, I'll show you how to apply in a minute. Application's open today, I guess. Well, it says on the 15th, but you can start applying now up until the 26th. We'll have our second meeting of the month on the 24th. So we'll kind of go over these rules again. In case you're uncertain, you can ask questions, yada, yada. But the deadline to apply is the 26th. And then because exams are kind of pushed back this year, not till more of like the end of April, mid to end of April, we're going to have these interviews sometime in the first 2 weeks of April. It's nothing that you should be too concerned about as taking up too much time or adding stress to your plate. They're really not too tricky or time consuming to prep for and to do. So don't let that hold you back. And how to apply. So super easy. You're just going to send an email to uvicgb@gmail.com or Facebook message the account, or if you want, you can direct Facebook message Cole, the CC, with your top 3 positions. So if I was going to apply, I'd send it to Cole and say, my number 1 is education, my number 2 is fundraising, my number 3 is communications. And then you send it to him, maybe say, hi, thank you, bye, smiley face or something nice. And then we will either get back to you right away saying, great, thanks, but don't expect the interview dates to be sent right away, because we're gonna have to take some time to see all the applications, and then we'll send out some dates that you can pick from and times, and we'll do our best to work around everyone's schedule to make sure everyone has a chance to get interviewed. So I guess the next step would be to make sure to pick a date when the time comes. And then step 3 is to prepare for your interview. So if any execs want to chip in at this part, I just put in some tips. So I know last year when I was applying, I was very nervous about the elevator pitch I had to give. I know we practiced those earlier, just kind of like I think it was a 60-second spiel about what is GB, why it's important, how to get involved, etc. So you want to be prepared with that. There really is no right or wrong answer. It's just kind of talking about GB, and it's not too long. Be prepared to talk about the roles you picked. So if you want to be in education, you're not going to come there and be like, oh, I actually don't know what education is. You've got all these resources. You've seen education throughout the year, so you know what it is. Come prepared to talk about it and talk about how maybe like why you're suited for that role, and how like you will do, why you will succeed in this role. So if you want to do fundraising, maybe we might ask you, well, what are some fundraising ideas you have? And then you can go on and talk about that. So I guess be prepared to talk about your top 3 options, and be kind of like, I'm not saying this is going to be your med school interview, but be professional. You're going into an interview. You want to obviously, you know, have good Zoom etiquette, because I'm sure it'll be online, etc. You know, it's just like a job interview, I guess. Obviously, there's not as much weight on it, but it's always better to be kind of over prepared and overdressed, or whatever you want to say. Maybe that's just my opinion, but you never want to come under prepared. Cole, did you want to add anything to this?
Yeah, I think I just want to add that you know, it may seem like a lot, and you know, it definitely is a lot of work. I know that it's been stressful and a little you know, it can become a little bit difficult for us to cope, especially doing everything through an online forum. But being a part of an executive team is exactly what it sounds like. It's a team. You get really close with people in the club that you never think you would have. You get to form really great relationships and work through these together. You get a really great sense of responsibility, and you know, it helps you troubleshoot or problem solve, and you know, work on things together. And I think that, you know, anybody who's interested in, you know, trying to get a greater sense for global brigades, you know, and is looking for something that can be a really good resume booster and really good just for personal development, I think you should absolutely consider applying. It is a lot of work. And at the end of the day, you know, we are a university club. So there is that sense, it's not like a job, right? But you do have a responsibility, and we have a lot that we're trying to work towards. We are trying to put together a really great experience for normally what is, you know, 50 members to go on a brigade. So it is important that you're dedicated to what you're doing. It's important that you're not just going because you think it'll look good on a resume, but that you actually want to be a part of the club and help improve the club. You know, there are definitely spots that are available, but I just want to really stress that, you know, we all know what it's like when we have a member of the executive team who isn't really pulling their weight, and we do try to accommodate everyone. But, you know, just be, you know, if this is something that you're interested in doing, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, I guess is the main reason why I want to say that. But it is incredibly rewarding. You know, it's great to go in country, especially once you go in country and you see that you were part of the team that was able to make this possible. It's a really good feeling to get to do that. So I highly suggest it. And, you know, don't take it all too seriously. Come for the right reasons, but don't take it too seriously.
Yeah, thank you, Cole. Does anyone have any questions about how to apply, any of the roles, etc.? Cool. If you do, feel free to message any of us, or just send an email or message to the GB account, and someone will get back to you. Lastly, I know this meeting's been a little bit long. We're just about finished. Upcoming fundraisers, we have another trivia night. It's going to be super fun. It is going to be, again, a bit of general trivia, so it's very inclusive for all of you to join. It is on Saturday, March 20th. I think that's in 2 weeks. Not this weekend, but next weekend. It's going to be on Zoom, of course, with Kahoot. It is $10 admission. And then if you can see this right here, $100 to the keg. That is incredible. I'm super excited about it. I want to go to the keg, so I hope you guys are ready to bring your game faces, even though I'm pretty sure I got last place last Kahoot.
No, that was me, actually.
That's correct. It was
okay,
Cole.
yeah, I was going to say Cole, I think, did get last.
Trivia wizard over here.
There's a sign up sheet. It'll be in the meeting minutes, so you can sign up, and make sure once you do, you send your $10 to the uvicgb@gmail.com to make sure that you've paid that entry fee. Yeah, I guess that's it. Does anyone have any questions, again, in case you changed your mind from like 2 minutes ago? I know the slide says see you next week. That's my bad. It's actually see you in 2 weeks. It's going to be, I think I said it was the 24th. It's 2 Wednesdays from now. And that's all I have. So if you guys have questions, feel free to stick around. If not, head out. It was nice seeing you guys or seeing your names on the screen.